All right, welcome back to Super Bowl Radio Row in New Orleans, Super Bowl 59. Talking ball with Pat Leonard here on the Believe Network, brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, My Bookie, Sal Loretta for Men, Menswear and Taylor in Bergen County, New Jersey, and Estate 98 Coffee. We are here with the man, Sam Monson, 3013, co-host of Check the Mic, longtime PFF analyst as well. Sam, thanks so much for being here, man. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Yeah, so you and Steve Palazzolo had an awesome, if you guys didn't see it, go watch and listen to their breakdown of Super Bowl 59. It's a preview. They go all kinds of different angles on the Chiefs, on the Eagles. And one thing that stood out to me, Sam, that you dropped, I did not know this. You mentioned a stat that Patrick Mahomes has had 4 postseasons with 1 turnover-worthy play. That's real? That's a real stat?
It's funny. You know, we all talk about clutch quarterbacks and these guys that play their best in the biggest moments. And, Joe Montana was famous for it, Tom Brady. Like, it's what they do, right? But I don't know that there's been a quarterback like Mahomes who literally gets to the playoffs, gets to the important moments, and then kind of fundamentally changes the way he plays the game. He simply stops making mistakes. Like, he's not a particularly turnover-worthy play of first quarterback in the regular season, right? Like Justin Herbert for 2 or 3 straight years had the lowest turnover-worthy play rate in the NFL. It was like 1.6% for like 3 straight years. And that's basically as good as it gets. Aaron Rodgers has always been, really good at that, under 2% turnover-worthy play rate. Insanely careful, essentially, with the football. Mahomes is not really in the regular season. He's not bad, but he's more middle of the pack or sort of slightly above average in that area. But you get to the playoffs, and it's like a switch gets flipped, and he immediately becomes the most careful quarterback in the NFL in terms of taking care of the football. And it's not like it comes at the expense of something else, right? He doesn't suddenly get hyper-conservative and stop taking risks and stop making big plays. He simply cuts out the errors. It's like he just goes, all right, it's for real now. I'm not going to make a mistake. And you might get one a postseason. It's wild. Like, I've never seen a quarterback that's able to do that on, it's so absurd that I would normally be putting it down to just noise and variance and he's had a run, but he's doing it consistently every year now to the point where you have to sort of go, okay, this is real. He's actually able to just determine, now I'm not going to throw the ball to the opposition anymore.
Amazing. That's interesting. You mentioned Herbert, you said for 3 years had the lowest rate because he's been the opposite. He gets into the playoffs and turns the ball over at an insanely high rate.
I mean, the sort of interception numbers this year and the playoffs versus the regular season, those were legit in terms of the turnover-worthy plays tells the same kind of story. I mean, he made almost as many in that game, I think, as he did in the entire regular season. Yeah, he's had the exact opposite problem where he's got the postseason and for some reason melted down or imploded in that regard, whereas Mahomes gets to the playoffs and it's like, boom, you're not going to get any free ones anymore. If you're going to beat me, you're going to have to do it by playing better. You're not going to get a free ride.
How much better is this Chiefs team, notably better than last year's team that beat the 49ers? Because I remember my feeling, and I think a lot of people's feelings when they won that game was, man, this is probably the worst version of the Chiefs we're ever going to see. And they just won the Super Bowl. But then this year they had so many tight games, 1-score games, 3-point games, games where it felt like they should have lost, blocked field goals, whatever it was. How do you stack up, if this Chiefs team, do we expect one that is just way more high-powered and difficult for the Eagles to knock off than last year's? That felt like they were right for the taking.
So last year's team, though, I think it was just because we were focusing on the offense. Like, the offense was the worst version of the Chiefs' offense that we had ever seen last season. But the defense was the best version. Like, that was the best Chiefs defense we've probably ever seen. And again, once you got the weird thing about the Chiefs is by accident or design, they seem to sort of come right in the playoffs. Now, part of that is Mahomes deciding, all right, I'm going to play better. I'm not going to make mistakes. But last season, Rashee Rice emerging as the year went on really rescued that offense. They did have a real problem with wide receiver or receiver generally. Travis Kelce for the first time wasn't playing like Travis Kelce for a lot of the season. They didn't have wide receiver threats. And then Rashee Rice really emerged as that number one target and did it late in the year and into the playoffs. And that, I think, really propped them up in the playoffs. Plus the fact that you were pairing them with the best defense that they've ever had. This year, I think it's slightly different because some things are the same. Kelsey is looking like he can turn it on in postseason as well. Again, they're kind of getting the receivers in order as the year goes on. Like you're getting Hollywood Brown back, that's going to make a difference. But a rookie and Xavier Worthy, the longer he goes, kind of the more familiarity he's got. So that's a little bit Rasheed Rice-like as well. So I think the receiving core is better comparison than it was earlier in the season. But I don't think the defense is as good as it was a year ago. It's not bad. It's still a good unit, but last year's defense was amazing. This one's good. So it's maybe more of a well-rounded Chiefs team overall than it was a year ago, but I think it's definitely weaker in some areas.
I don't have a handle on. I'm glad you brought this up. The one thing I don't have a handle on in this game is so the Chiefs receivers you mentioned. It's like there's some big names like DeAndre Hopkins, Juju Smith-Schuster,
Right.
Worthy's a speedster, right? And then you get Hollywood Brown back. There's pedigree there to win one-on-one matchups and to flourish and produce in a game like this. But we haven't seen it at a supersonic level that makes you say, I'm going to predict it's going to happen, but you can't rule it out. So how do you see that? And they're stacking up against the Eagles secondary.
There's also nobody that's been there for more than like a year in any kind of consistent capacity, right? You've obviously got Kelsey, the tight end. Juju Smith-Schuster has experience in the system and the offense, but has been in and out, and hasn't had, so they don't know what his role is exactly relative to all these other guys. Worthy is a rookie. Hollywood Brown's there for the first year and has only barely gotten back on the field. DeAndre Hopkins arrived halfway through the year. Like the Chiefs, I think, are still working out how this all fits together. Like they're piecing together the jigsaw of this receiving core. I think theoretically, there's a pretty good, well-balanced group in there, but they already, this is the last time to figure it out before the season's finished, right? So there's definitely, they've had another couple of weeks to work on all this. I think it's a lot of unknown. It's not that these guys are necessarily bad or, there's missing elements of their game. Like, I think there is a very good wide receiver core to be created in this group. But because they just haven't had that much time together or healthy or, they haven't had the sort of practice time to work on it all, I think they are still piecing it together and trying to figure out how this group functions as one cohesive offense. And that might happen this game. Like they might actually, a couple of weeks of practice and time to work it all out, all of a sudden this offense might click together and you've got, possession weapons in DeAndre Hopkins and Juju, you've got speedsters, you've got Travis Kelsey, you've got everything works, right? And Mahomes not putting the ball in harm's way. And we might see the best offense of the Chiefs this season. And suddenly it starts to look, more like a few years ago. Or it might just be, they're not going to be able to piece all that together because there's all these moving pieces and, they haven't had the time to put it together. So I think it's definitely a really interesting variable that we don't really know what version of this offense we're going to see.
Very much so, yeah. One player that I feel like could tilt this game in a direction people don't expect is Jalen Carter. That people expect him to produce and be a good player in a tough force. Creed Humphrey's excellent, and the interior of the Chiefs' offensive line is very strong. Trey Smith, etc. Do you think, or do you agree with me, that Carter is a good enough player to have the kind of game that could send the Eagles to a 14-point victory?
Yeah. So I think that there is a potential weakness on the left side of that Chiefs offensive line that might be getting overlooked a bit now because it didn't show up in the AFC Championship game. Right? Buffalo was not able to exploit that. Remember, the Chiefs have left guard, all-pro guard, but still a guard, Joe Thuney playing left tackle, right? They have decided that's their best option rather than trying to put DJ Humphries out there, coming back with his injuries. They've decided, we know, better the devil you know. We know Joe Thuney can at least survive at left tackle. We know we have to give him some help, chip blocks, running backs, tight ends. We know we have to help him out, but we know what we're dealing with. What that makes, left tackle is not in a good spot because Thuney is good for a guard. He's not good for, a baseline left tackle. Certainly not, look at the other team, right? Jordan Mailata versus Joe Thuney, right? Mailata is an all-pro caliber left guard. Joe Thuney is probably below league average at starting left tackle. You move him inside the guard, he's an all-pro. So left tackle is a potential weakness. But moving him there puts Mike Caliendo at left guard, and that's a massive weakness. He's the worst player on that offensive line. So now the entire left side is a weakness, right?
You're making an argument for moving Thuney back inside is what you're doing.
Well, no, not necessarily, because I think they just decided, look, this is the best way we can deploy this offensive line. And it's a reasonable point to make. Like DJ Humphries barely played this season. He's coming back off a significant injury. Got a hamstring injury after that, and even when he was out there, it didn't look good. So, that might be worse, right?
Yeah, right.
But the point is, they already know they have to help out Joe Tooney because he's a guard playing tackle. If Jalen Carter is one-on-one with Mike Caliendo, that's in the Aaron Donald spectrum of he wins that every time, and quick, right? So now you're going into this game going, well, if that's the situation, we have to help him out as well. So now every line slide needs to be to the left. So now you have to go, not only do we need a running back or a tight end over here to help out Tooney, but we also need to slide left every play. Now you've got to help out two different people, and that's difficult to do, right? All of a sudden, it's doable, but there's a whole swathe of the playbook that's not really on the table anymore, right? Like this, we can't run these things because they involve not sliding the line to the left, and they involve a running back or a tight end being somewhere else. So they're gone, right? It's just a potential issue that didn't show up in the AFC Championship game. The other, of course, way that the Chiefs have to kind of offset all that is Mahomes, right? And the Bengals did this with Joe Burrow at times this season, which is to go into a game and say, look, we're overmatched on the line. They're going to lose. They're probably going to lose quickly. It's on you, right? There's no fix to this, Joe. You have to get the ball out fast, repeatedly, over and over and over again. It's like, okay, fine. Burrow is good enough. Mahomes is good enough to do that. So that's a potential way to offset this. But there's definitely a world where Jalen Carter is basically unblockable against Mike Caliendo, where the edge rushers of Philadelphia give Joe Tooney enough problems that, that's occupying all of the help. And suddenly this Chiefs offense is sort of trapped in a pretty tight box of things that they're able to run because of the pressure that's coming from that left side.
And then, what do you know, fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, we see Mahomes scrambling to make the biggest play of the game. I actually have my theory is that because of everything you just laid out, amazing breakdown of that, by the way. But I feel like this game is going to come down to a quick win by Jalen Carter, a massive hit on Mahomes, and does a flag by flag. If it does, it's the Chiefs. If it doesn't, it's the Eagles. So a couple quick sponsorship segments. One is Here Comes the Boom, brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink. We're not going to pick the game yet, but this is the player that's the non-obvious player who you feel is going to make the biggest boom impact in this game. So excluding essentially, Mahomes and Saquon and Jalen Hurts.
So this got to be a positive impact?
Oh, no, it doesn't.
I mean, I think Oren Burks is a real X-factor player, the linebacker for the Eagles. This will be the second consecutive Super Bowl that Oren Burks ended up playing significant time because the guy in front of him got hurt, right? Last year's Super Bowl, it was Dre Greenlaw popping his Achilles, running back on the field. Suddenly, Oren Burks is front and center as a starting linebacker. And then this year it was Kobe Dean going down before that, and he's thrusting the starting lineup again. Oren Burks was amazing in the NFC Championship game, like an incredible performance, maybe the game of his career. He has, however, played enough that you would say that's probably not his baseline. And all of a sudden, he's the guy that's got to cover Travis Kelce, that's got to deal with this misdirection, eye candy before the snap, all coming across the middle. Oren Burks, I think, is going to have a target on his back that Andy Reid is going to look to try and exploit, and whether or not he holds up, I think it's a pretty big X factor in this game.
Interesting. No one said Oren Burks yet. All right. Look Good, Play Good, brought to you by Sal Loretta for men, menswear. They keep me right for Super Bowl, game day, Giants here at the Super Bowls, etc. So look good, play good. I would say the question, sometimes I'm asking the players, like, who's your teammate that dresses nicest on game day? My question to you would be, which player on either team has looked good enough, let's say in the championship games or through the playoffs, that you feel like they've stood out more so than they did in the regular season, or that they projected to deliver a bigger Super Bowl than you would have thought in week 17 or 16?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise because we've seen them do it over and over again, but both Mahomes and Kelce have again gone, it's playoff time, let's go, and they've stepped it up, right? It's amazing. Mahomes, I think, just has that ability to flip the switch. I don't know if Kelce is not phoning it in, but just sort of getting through the regular season and then going, all right, it's playoff time, let's go. But those two, their ability to just turn on production and like higher quality play once you get to the playoffs it's nuts. They've been able to do it consistently now for multiple years, and they're doing it again.
It's insane. All right, finally, Pat's Picks brought to you by MyBookie. Who do you got? Chiefs or Eagles, and why?
It's funny, the Vegas line has been like 1.5 Kansas City basically for the entirety of the way, right? It opened at that. I think it moved to 2 for like 5 minutes and back to 1.5. I feel like Vegas has it right. It's a coin flip, and you lean on the side of Kansas City because they're the team with the muscle memory. They're the team who's done it over and over again. You know, they're the tiebreaker, right? That's kind of how I feel about it. It's a really close game. I think it'll be a really good game. But in a close game, how can you not favor Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs?
Right, they've done it in this spot several times, and they've done it all season as this team winning these types of close games.
And like, look, this is a world of sports psychology, and it's all about visualization, right? It's the thing that sports psychologists work on. Visualize the success so that when you get to that moment, your brain's already done it. They've literally already done it. They don't need to visualize it. They did it a year ago. Almost everybody on this roster has already done this. They've been and won a Super Bowl, if not 2 of them. Like, that has to be an advantage. I don't know how big the edge is, but it's definitely there.
Not feeling good about my Eagles pick. That's the strongest Chiefs argument I've heard yet. All right, Talking Ball with Pat Leonard, Believe Network here on Super Bowl Radio Row. Again, brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, Salaretta for Men, State 98 Coffee, and My Bookie. Sam, for coming on, we have a free bag of Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink for you.
Nice.
Antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, lower cholesterol, etc. Sam Monson of the 3013, co-host of Check the Mic. Go check it out. Thanks so much for being here, man.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.